My name is Cheryl Laurie, and my assistant is Michelle, who's going to be hosting this virtual learning meeting. She will also be monitoring the chat room so that, there we go. So if you have any questions or in some of the prompts, I may ask you to write something in a chat room. She will go ahead and be monitoring those. I do not have it pulled up right now. So make sure it's something that she can see. The other part of our conversation is going to be, it might be where you can just unmute yourself. And if you have a connection or something you want to add or a question, a wondering, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask those. It's, very informal. Those of you who know me know that I'm not the formal kind of girl. So I'm hoping that we have fun, that this is very meaningful to you. And I really do appreciate you coming in on a Saturday morning or, pulling out your comfy chair and a cup of coffee. So we're going to go ahead. Michelle's all good to go?
Yes, ma'am. We're ready to go.
All right. Okay. So let's start with a quote. For those of you who don't think outside the box, are easily contained. We're going to do a lot of thinking today, trying to think outside the box, because the situation we are in is definitely requiring us to be quite open-minded to this journey this year. So here we go in the chat room. Welcome. If you wouldn't mind typing in where you're from, what school, grade level that you teach, and then basically let us know, are you delivering your instruction virtually, remotely, hybrid, face-to-face? Go ahead and add those in the chat. All right, I'm seeing some virtual, some in-person, some remote. Virtual. Starting the end of October. Yeah, some of us are in the district that I'm in. We are early November, are waiting a decision whether or not we're going back. So, all right. This really helps me to kind of, get a sense of where you guys are coming from, what kind of experiences you're having, and how to kind of gear some of our conversations. So it seems like we definitely have virtual, we have some face-to-face, we have some people are doing both. So perfect. I think it's going to be great for us today. All right. The agenda for today. The first part is always about the why. The early years, those learning features, why is it we do what we do? And then we have to look at, we know why we do it, and so what does that look like for our virtual home learners? How do we create these experiences of play and learning for some of our youngest learners who, some of them, they've never even set foot on our doors yet. They don't even know what school is. There's going to be an opportunity in the middle of it for a little break, little brain break, get a cup of coffee, change up your blanket, move into this, warm up a little bit today. So, and then right after the break was going to be, we're going to talk about really digging into some sample learning engagements of things that we can do virtually. We're going to do a little breakout. I'm going to be a risk taker, try a breakout learning engagements with you guys that I think is going to be meaningful, that you are going to be able to walk away from today. I'm hoping to really take some of this and apply it next week in your classrooms, whether they be face-to-face or virtual. And some time for reflection, discussion. And at the end, there's a toolbox of treasures. I have several things that I have collected just because I've been such the inquirer into what does virtual learning look like and sound like, and how do we support it for our youngest learners. So I'm hoping some of these treasures in this toolbox you may gain, it might help you, and you can use them also in your teaching practices. All right, we are going to start with our essential agreements. I'm proposing these. Again, like I said, be open-minded. We're all in this together. It's something new. I am no expert. While I was asked to speak and present because I have experience with working with the PYP and in early childhood realm, I am by no means a virtual experienced teacher, a teacher experienced virtually, because this is all new for every one of us. So open-minded to what opportunities that we're using as we're able to share with one another. What we're doing is going to be great, being communicators. This is going to be collaboration. You guys are probably doing some amazing things that everybody wants to know about. We're here to learn from each other, support one another, to really develop what we're doing. And then last, caring. We have to show grace. We have to show grace for ourselves and care for ourselves and know that this is tough. This is hard. We need to be kind. You need to sit back this morning, relax, get your cup of coffee. I don't know about you, but I'm wearing my slippers because I want to be comfortable with you guys and go through this and know that this is tough and we are here to support each other. So get your cup of coffee, grab yourself a muffin, sit beside a window so you can see the beautiful sunshine. But again, give yourself grace and take care of yourself. All right, let's go. Here we go. All right, in the chat box, why did you decide to join this webinar today? What brought you here? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. Curious. All right. New ideas, collaboration, more about the PYP. Oh, I'm your girl. I can PYP it up. Engaging activities, that's what I'm hoping for. Thanks, Angela. I missed you too. All right. Great, perfect. Well, I am really hoping that the things, you know, planning is amazing, but it's messy. And I'm going to be completely honest with you that this planning was messy. I literally tried to get ahead of the game and plan, you know, a week to 2 out, getting things organized. And I'll tell you, midnight last night, I was rethinking it. And I had to put that perspective of like, if I were you sitting at home on a Saturday morning, why would I stay? What is it that I would want to hear So I was rethinking it, rebooting it. I'm like, I want engagement from you just as you want engagement with your kiddos. So I really tried to gear things and shape things so that it is collaborative, it is meaningful, and obviously it's all embedded in what we are doing as PYP teachers. So I am really hoping that your decision to come today is the best decision you made on a Saturday morning. And I hope that I can do my best to meet your expectations and help move you ahead in this challenging journey that we're on together. All right, so what we're gonna start with is, we're gonna start with the essential features. This, here we go. This symbol right here actually comes from Principles into Practice, which is with the new enhancements with the PYP. This is all about early years. Early years are our preschoolers and our kindergartners. It is all of us. So these are the features, and that's what we're going to talk about. This is the why we do what we do. And we're going to talk about why we do it in the classroom for those of us who are face-to-face or maybe going back face-to-face shortly, and those who are doing virtual learning. And what does that look like and how does that transfer? We are going to start off talking about relationships. We are going to talk about the symbolic exploration and expression that we develop with our students. We're going to talk about those learning spaces at home and at school, and we're going to talk about play. All right, now we're going to start with relationships. Supporting relationships is incredibly important, and we've now been in school at least 2 months, and all of us know the first thing we do is build relationship with our families, build relationships with our students. So at school, if they were sitting in front of you, you know, or you would have had an open house, or you would have had your kindergarten tea, or your, you know, new families invitation activities, those things would have happened where you had already started those relationships. You would start having regular conversations with the parents. You would start acknowledging and respecting some of the diversity and the individuality that you have in your students and their needs. You would start connecting with individual students, knowing those through those conversations, listening, creating some documentation, starting to acknowledge some things about certain students or groups of students. You're going to start to, you would start recognizing how you could help self-regulate some kids, help them regulate themselves in the classroom and at school. They needed, you know, extra, you know, differentiation in certain things to help accommodate some of their social emotional needs. And then you would be planning for uninterrupted play, because, you know, play is so important and you need to allow for that uninterrupted play. So, and that is, I want you to think about that and put that in a little filing behind your, what is uninterrupted play? And we're going to talk about that more in a little bit. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to be there. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a video. This video comes from 3 people, Kath Murdoch, Trevor McKenzie, and Kimberly Mitchell. These 3 did a fireside chat, and they talked a little bit about this relationship piece. So I have a very small clip I want you to listen to. And they're talking about virtual learning and how do we get kids to inquire. And specifically, they're going to talk about this relationship piece of getting to know families, getting to know your students when they're not sitting in front of you, and how they suggest, or some of their experiences with this around the world has influenced their practices and even their own homes.
I love that, Kath. You know, one word I heard you say was noticing. And, you know, I'd encourage teachers to help parents notice what's happening with their children at home. And as a parent of two, inquisitive sons here, I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, just in observing them through this first few weeks of, being away from their pals and their teachers from school, there have been a number of things that I've noticed that have, captured their interests. And I'm seeing learning happening. I'm seeing literacy and I'm seeing numeracy. And I think we really do need to wear our noticing hats. And I think that comes easier for me as an inquiry teacher and practitioner. When I'm a parent at home, I tend to pick those things up. I think a little sooner than I used to before I had children. And so I think teachers around the world, I encourage you to ask parents, what are you noticing? Where are their interests taking them? Where are their curiosities taking them? And then how can we together build upon that so that we capture that learning at home that's already happening? I think, Kath, another thing that you mentioned is around equity, right? Which families have access to technology and to have that conduit to the teacher at school, at home now. And I think equity goes beyond merely technology, right? Equity goes into books on shelves at home. It goes into, do you have access to outside as I look into my backyard? And do you have access to, green space or trails, or what is your access point to the world around you? And can you get there? And never before, not just because we are looking at remote learning, but also through a global pandemic, never before has equity in learning been so front and center. So I really encourage teachers to ask broad questions. Again, it comes back to noticings and questions, doesn't it? Ask broad questions so we can get to know what it's like at home, and what is it like for the learners at home and for the families, the parents at home, how many kids are at home, and what are the stresses and uncertainties of all being in the same place at the same time, because we want to make sure that first and foremost, our families are taken care of and that they are ready for learning. In fact, kind of transcending all of this is, how are our kids doing? How are these families doing? And through all of those questions that we're going to ask, I think we're going to get to a much finer space or direction to maximize learning at home, if you will.
Okay. So if you are interested in hearing more about inquiry in a virtual setting, this webinar that's listed, their fireside chat, is on Kath Murdoch's website. If you look under media, you could watch this it's maybe about an hour, and it's really, really good. Kath Murdoch is amazing. She, if you know about her inquiry circles where you tune in and sort out and go deeper and explore, she's an amazing expert on inquiry, especially for our early years students, and has written several books. Trevor McKenzie, he does a lot of stuff even with math. He's a high school teacher right now, but like he said, speaking from young kids and his perspective on inquiry is great. And then Kimberly Mitchell is relatively newer to the game. For myself, I purchased her book recently on experiencing inquiry, and this was the one that was listed in there. And I have not gotten to read it yet, but it's gotten a lot of really big recommendations. So I, encourage you, if you want to watch something really talking about inquiry in remote learning and some of the challenges and frustrations. Again, this is a pretty lengthy webinar, but I wanted to capture specifically what we were talking about, relationships. So if you wouldn't mind in the chat, when you think about how to help the noticing or even the concern about equity, does any of those two things, how you how you help support parents notice learning, or your concern about equity, any of those two things resonate with anybody that you would like to share? Or you can unmute yourself if you so choose. Okie doke. All right, well, we are going to move on. All right, so now, oh, wait a minute. I see a couple things in the chat room. Let me check here. I apologize. My chat wasn't showing up here.
Yeah, it just popped up.
Gotcha. All right. Oh, let me see. Equity is a concern. Students being able to log in. Parents into conversations if I see them there. Different environments where they're coming from. Yes, that's a good, very good perspective. Trying to do virtual learning in a noisy daycare. Absolutely, yes. The environments that our kids are in, we don't have much control as if they were with us. Not always have an adult to support them. Yeah. And that's challenging, especially when you think about, the technology, and I'm an adult and I struggle. But I can only imagine, how kids are we are teaching adults and children. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great perspective, Brenda. So, how do we support our relationships when we're at home? So, teacher to student, that might be somewhat easier because you can, directly start to build those relationships with your kids. Some of you might be doing individual, whether you're doing your assessments or just building a relationship with your kids individually and having them come in at small group time and getting to know them. It's really important, teacher to parent. I think if you're going to find out some of the interest, some of to learn more about your kids, you're going to have to probably talk to your parents more now than you ever did before. You're going to have to interview them, like what's going on, how are they feeling, what are their interests, what motivates them, what kind of engagements can I plan or maybe shape to meet this needs, and what are some emotional things that are going on with, are they afraid, are they scared, are they anxious? So having that conversation with the parents is very important. Parent to child, those relationships in the toolbox, there's going to be some things about how do we, like you said, you are teaching students and you're teaching parents. Some of us have been doing this for a while, and so we have some knowledge to fall back on. Many of our parents, the technology is new for them. Grandparents, the technology is new for them, and we're asking them to help us support their education and understand maybe why you're going to be asking them to do some things. And as we talk later on today, there might be some things that you're going to be having your students do that the parents are going to be like, are you kidding? Why are you in there digging out that? Or what are you getting that for? You're supposed to be doing school. You don't need that. Go put that blanket away. Or go get those cups. What are you doing with those cups? I mean, think about me as a parent. If my kid was running around the house looking for something or trying to do something because it was an engagement we were provoking and the parent doesn't know anything about it, they're going to be anxious. Your kids are going to be anxious. So as we get creative and really try to find meaningful, engaging things for our students to do, we have to communicate with the parents so the parent understands what's going on, so the parent can support the child also. Teacher to teacher, I really hope you have time to work on those relationships with your teachers, with each other. Support each other. You guys are all in the same place right now. We're challenged. We have fears. We have concerns. We're anxious. We need to lean on each other and support one another. And then student to student, this is tough. You can't put kids in breakout rooms by themselves, but how can you, through restorative circles or some kind of activities or engagements, just to get them to start to build relationships with their peers in the virtual world is hard. It really is hard. especially if, you know, like I said, the whole technology piece of how do you mute, how do you unmute, you know, and all the other distractions in the different settings that all of our kids are in, the variety. Okay. I guess I have to turn my chat off because it won't let me move forward. Technology. All right. Perspective. You know, when you think about our key concepts, we have to think about a perspective through all of this. The perspective of the parents right now, the grandparents, the perspective of the students and how they're feeling. Again, thinking about equity, thinking about different environments and what the kids are, the struggles that they're trying to, you know, they want access, they want to be a part of this, but we have to have that perspective, that open-minded perspective, and realize that everything is different, and we have to even give our parents and grandparents grace and our caregivers grace, because they're struggling with this just as much as we are. All right. The next part is the symbolic exploration and expression at school. Ooh, those are big words for early years teachers. So let me break it down a little bit. Basically, it talks about the symbols and those things such as language, you know, our alphabetic principles, the language, the vocabulary, the mathematical symbols, numeracy, all of those things. If they were at school, your setting would be filled with opportunities to support the development of language and mathematical understanding. There would be centers, there would be activities, there would be, you know, circle things, books you read, all of those things support it at school. Students get to express their ideas. They start making connections to their learning. They start to consolidate their understanding in different contexts. They start seeing how, wow, I see this in this book and how that connects to what we just did over in the center, and wait, I can go outside and do that. I mean, they start making those connections, and oh, when I go to music class, she's talking about symbols too. When they're with you, it's a little bit easier to make those connections. And then integrating the language to support multilingualism. Again, another one of those really big words, but it's supporting, you know, we have English, we have second language students, there's other mother tongue languages in the home. You know, there's a lot of different languages that we need to be open to and support. And thinking about virtual learning, you may be more aware of it now than you ever were when the student is in the home and the environment is filled with a variety of different languages that the student, and it gives you that perspective of this is what our kids hear, and this is their home, this is their mother tongue, and how do I support that? And what do I need to do? So at home, how do we do that? Well, we might do that through games. There are rhymes and poems and stories that you can present to your kids, encourage parents, model for them, make suggestions, different play, conversations, having opportunities to do mark making, you know, the drawing, the creating and developing symbols for their thinking, problem solving, counting, patterning, sequencing, all of those things that are developing that symbolic exploration and expression of their thinking, and developing and organizing things, and to help them start to make those connections. Think about some simple games that we've played, you know, whether it's Chutes and Ladders or, you know, even Connect Four. Some of those things, the amount of skills that we could, students are able to develop, you know, the turn taking and all the different things of one-to-one correspondence. All of that is developed through these activities that we have to promote and encourage to be taking place at home. These engagements are interest-based, and they're intentional experiences directly support the influence of later formal language and math. So these engagements at home, these engagements if they were with you, are always, it's building that foundational formative learning. And again, support the home language at home, the mother tongue language. And if you need help, ask. Like if there are, you know, communication things, whether you're trying to communicate with a grandparent or a parent and they have a separate language than what you're familiar with, and please ask for that support. All right. Making connections. This is important. Again, this making connections across the language, the math, and the different disciplines, and allowing kids to start to see the relationships and make the connections to later learning through symbolic exploration and expression. All right, so here's a game that two kids have created. And I want you, as you watch this, think about what it's a game, it's play, it's gonna have some mathematical, probably gonna have some language things, it's gonna have some time to reflect and think. Think about all the skills that these two young boys are going through in this creative game that they have with just some cups and water and a ping pong.
Today we are going to be playing Minute to Win It. The first round is going to be ping pong balls relay. So we each have 4 ping pong balls. We need to blow one at a time until we get to the very end cup. So the first person to get all the balls to the very end wins in under a minute.
On your mark, get set, go.
Oh, that was a close one.
All back.
Can't even get one! Oh! You win. I get it.
1 minute.
So Tyler won this round by getting 3 balls in the end, and I got 0.
What's your trick to success, Ty?
All you have to do is blow down the water, then push the ball up into the other cup. Round 2.
All right, what do you notice about that experience? Put in a chat, go ahead or unmute yourself. What are some of the things that you noticed?
Perseverance.
Good sportsmanship.
Yeah, that older brother wasn't too happy. His eyes were like, oh.
Focus, working the angles, having fun and learning. Hands-on.
Yeah. I love Dad's question.
Mm-hmm.
He asked him what, you know, the one son, the younger son, like, why were you so successful at that? And he let him describe it. It's really, the video, there's like 3 or 4 different challenges they do together. And the next one, they do a stacking of just some regular pieces of wood, and the younger brother beats him. And literally at the end of that video, the older brother's about ready to cry. I couldn't show you guys that one because it was pretty sad. But, and then after that, they did a connecting straws, and the younger one had no idea. And finally, the older brother was like, I persevered. I finally beat my little brother. So it's it's observing that and noticing it, and then figuring out, okay, how can we help parents do this? Like, how do we help them capture these so that they can let you know and report to you. And again, at those toolboxes at the end of later part of this presentation, I think is going to help us help parents. Through this, I think what I've learned that it excites me is I would love to have some kind of like a parent academy or workshop, because I feel like even beyond this experience has helped me understand that we need to support parents at home, whether they're preschoolers, kindergartners, first graders, second graders, on how to notice things and support their kids in a very non-threatening, easy, fun way. And I guess this is our chance to start at a smaller level, but it's so important. All right. We are moving, we are in our timing. We're doing well. I'm excited. I feel like we're going to get to the good stuff. Good. All right. I always worry. I'm like, I always want to make sure that you get to see the great things that I've planned. All right. So supporting learning spaces at school, when you think about your learning space, you can offer a range of open-ended materials. Your cupboards, your drawers, are filled with open-ended materials that you can offer to kids at school. You can arrange and rearrange materials to invite different kinds of learning. You can create areas for role playing, block playing, that mark making, expression things through the arts. You have range of choices, whether there's group or individual play. Well, you used to. There's fewer choices right now. You're involving students in designing and constructing the play areas. And that's important with agency, even at school. Get the students involved in designing and constructing those play areas. They shouldn't all be teacher changes everything out, teacher pulls out all the materials, teacher decides what's going to be there in that area for that week or that month or that unit. Get the children, let the students be a part of that designing and instruction. And then creating displays that reflect the process of students learning. It's always about process. I'm going to probably say that 10 times this morning. Process. It's not the product. The product is insignificant. It's the process of their learning. It's not the cookie cutter, everybody's looks the same. And I know that everybody knows that. And that was one of the, when I went off on a tangent of like, oh, we need to, but then I was like, no, it's about virtual learning. It'll be okay. But it's really the capturing process is messy and it's never the same. How kids get there is different, and we need to value process. Okay, enough said. All right, what about at home? This is the area that is and can be the most challenging, and where we need to have the most grace. We need to have a very good perspective, and we need to be open-minded. We have to be very mindful of parents, grandparents. You, as you have said, you guys have an insight into that camera of where these kids are coming from. And there is no judgment. You just have to support, you need to encourage, and you need to be open-minded of what is it that you can do. And it's gonna be individualized. You know, your equity, the range of equity in your students can be from one end of the spectrum to the other. And we have to make sure that the learning experiences and engagements that are virtually being offered allow for engagement of all students. And how can we do that? What can we ask of our students? What can we ask of our caregivers that we know everybody in some way or form can participate? And so I'm hoping when we start talking about those learning engagements and talking about what we can offer our families to do at home, take into this perspective that their homes aren't filled with the same cupboards and materials that we have in our classrooms. And So we can't say, and yes, while we might be able to deliver some things, we may be able to put them in a bag and say, here, you're going to need this for next month. You don't know what's going to happen with that bag. An older sibling, a younger sibling, it could have gone out with, I mean, there's some things that we can plan for it, but we have to be open-minded to know that all plans need to be flexible. So let's talk about these spaces at home. How can spaces be used to explore, to wonder, create, and the learning through play? How can we help in a very non-threatening way, help create those spaces of wonder and exploration? If you notice, I didn't say a desk, a chair, a light, a pencil, a paper. It's the space for exploration, wonder, create. And think about what Trevor McKenzie said about equity, because what I have outside my window, what your family may have outside their window may be very different than what other kids have outside their windows and where they can go out to explore. It's very different. The other thing is how students co-design and co-construct those learning spaces, even at home. Again, we have to get those parents and caregivers a part of this process. If there's a learning engagement and experience that you want your kids, your students to start designing or constructing something, the parents need to know this, because the kids they're going to be excited. They're going to be whatever. They're going to be like, they're going to be digging for their socks. They're going to be digging for boxes. They're going to be digging for cups and spoons and who knows what that they're going to want. And parents need to know, what in the world? This isn't school. This isn't how I went to school. What are you doing? So be mindful of that. And then making sure resources and materials are identified at home to support student choice and agency. There needs to be flexibility. You can't expect that the materials everybody has, so there need to be flexible materials. You need to say, we're going to build something, but you need to say, you have to have this, this, and this. Leave them the agency to think about and imagine what they're going to use to participate in this engagement. All right, change. I must be getting excited, guys. How can we change our thinking and to help support the parents and the students with their spaces at home? How many of you made one of these? Wow, we did this all the time at home. I mean, we had blankets and we put them over chairs and couches all the time. Some parents and families would be all about this and open to this. Some of them were going to like, what are you doing? Why you got the blankets? What are you doing with the chair? That's not, that's not school. So again, communication and openness with the caregivers and family is important as we get creative to experience and engage these kids in learning opportunities. All right, what between the relationships, between the symbolic expression, and between the learning spaces, what element was in all of those? What feature did you notice, an element? They all involved what?
Choice.
Choice. Creativity. Flexibility. Open-mindedness. Absolutely. We have to, when we're doing this, we have to always think through play. The flexibility, the openness, the choice, the creativity of how can we make this so students are learning through play. Whether they are our kindergartners, our 6 or 7-year-olds, I would tell you if they were 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, play is so important. So in the chat box, what is play to you? What do you think? What is play? Describe it in your own words. Free expression to learn. Engaging in activities of interest and having fun. New creative exploration, expression. Freedom to imagine. Create another world that includes you. Fun. We like fun. So what do you think as what is unstructured play to you? If you say your kids are unstructured play, what does that mean? Because if you look at your standards, if you talk, they're supposed to have a balance between structured and unstructured play. What's unstructured? No guidelines. All right. So what I'm thinking about as I'm reading some of these is I'm thinking about what does play look like virtually? And how do we know? And how do we capture it? So that's kind of where, if they were at school, you have engaging learning spaces. You have designed those. You can notice emerging thinking and interest in kids. You may pull things out or reorganize, your materials and resources because you notice that the kids are really interested in something. And so you want to stretch their thinking, extend their learning a little bit. So you have control over that at school. The opportunities for uninterrupted time and play, indoors and outdoors. Like you can have uninterrupted, and that was earlier in the slideshow talking about uninterrupted means, they're playing and you're not saying, okay, I need you here. Okay, now it's time you got to do this. They need opportunities to have uninterrupted play where they have time to get into the imagination, get creativity, and really get into play without feeling like they got to keep changing, because it takes time. It takes time to get that engagement. You're monitoring and documenting their play. You're taking those anecdotal notes. You're capturing things with photos. You're noticing things. You're documenting, whether it's social emotional skills, whether you've noticing some one-to-one correspondence, if you're noticing some symbolic, letters or communication, like they're trying to imitate, writing out a recipe or writing a note to mom, those type of things. If they are at school, you can scaffold those learning experiences and monitor and document them. At home, it's very different. We want to find out ways to support student-centered play experiences at home with good communication with the parents or caregivers again. Like we need to talk with them and discuss with them and share with them ways of making it student-centered, of doing some experiences. And maybe that's something that we build through our learning engagements, and we teach the parents with the child. We get the parents just as excited and engaged about the learning as the student is. And together they're learning, and it's an opportunity to teach both parent and child about finding things that are student-centered and not, you know, go sit in front of the TV and leave me alone for a little bit because I need a break, because that's real too, and I get that. Creating authentic learning experience so students can develop and demonstrate those ATLs, those approaches to learning, and the attributes of the learner profile. So, whoa, wait, there's those PYP words again. Those experiences that we are going to develop, or you are developing now, you need to be mindful of. What skills are we developing? How are we developing that whole child to be the learner profile? You know, that, and remember, because I thought about this, is most of that vocabulary and language your preschoolers or your kindergartners haven't heard yet. They may not have had experience in school yet, so this is all new. Parents may not have ever heard of the learner profile. They don't know what approaches to learning are. We're still figuring out all of that lingo sometimes. So we have to be, show grace, be kind, and move slow. Even if it's just one thing that you're working on with the parent, and just one skill that you're asking the parent to notice and observe. Take it slow. Try not, you know, we don't want to intimidate or make them fearful or be afraid of this experience. We want them to embrace it, have fun and enjoy it, and feel like they are helping their child. So we have to empower them, not intimidate them with our words. So be very careful and cautious with giving them too much, you know what I mean? Like, you get to know your parents to know and differentiate with your parents the expectations. Encourage opportunities. Oh gosh, I talk with my hands a lot. Encourage opportunities for uninterrupted time for play, indoors and outdoors, just like school. You know, encourage the parents to let the kids have uninterrupted time to play inside and outside. I was sharing the other day with a friend about, growing up, we went outside and played for hours, and we could run through the neighborhood, and you knew that when the light, the street light came on, you better get home. Most of our kids don't have that opportunity, and we were too afraid. Like, we're not going to let our kids do that. I've got 20-some-year-old kids now, but I wouldn't have allowed that. It's a different, we say it's a different world. That sounds like such an old term, but it is. And equity, they may not have places outdoors. So how do we support and frame that without making somebody feel like they can't do this because they live in an apartment in a neighborhood where they're not near a park. They're not near, some of the things that we think about you need to know your kids when you plan your engagements. You need to make sure that you're mindful of all of this. Tools to monitoring, documenting the aspects of play at home. It's going to be in that toolbox that I told you about. We're going to talk about tools that parents can capture this play at home to help support their noticing, to help you build that relationship, to get to know the kid and to know where they are and what they need next. All right, the function of play. What is it going to be like? All right, so this is a video, and this is going to be, I do believe, let me check it out here. Yeah, this is what we're going to, just before a break. So Dr. Peter Gray, literally, I had this TED Talk clip of him that was a very passionate plea about play. All the P's, passionate plea about play. Where he really talked about the difference between, should we be promoting more school or should we be promoting more play? I found this clip which I feel like it's just such a better capture of this man and his passion, his lifelong work about play and free play. So I want you to watch this and I want you to think about, should we be promoting more school or more play for our students?
Play is not wasted time for children. That there are all these things that children learn in play, and that cannot be taught. They could really only be learned in play. They're learned in experience, and for children, experience comes from play. How to get along with other kids. That's probably the most important thing any of us has to learn, is how to get along with peers. How do you, in a social situation, get your needs met while making sure that the other people involved are getting their needs met? First of all, the word play is a word that we use in a lot of different ways. So what play means to me and most play researchers is it's an activity that is defined by the confluence of 4 different characteristics. So one characteristic is that it's self-chosen and self-directed. And I really emphasize that because, you know, we talk about our kids playing baseball or soccer when it's not self-chosen, and to me, even if it's self-chosen, it's not self-directed. So I don't consider that adult-directed activities to be play. Play is an activity that children are choosing for themselves and directing themselves. It's really how children learn to create their own activities, how children learn to direct their own activities. The second characteristic of play is that it's intrinsically reinforcing, it's intrinsically motivating. You're doing it just because you want to do it. You're not doing it to get a trophy, you're not doing it to get praise from your parents or a teacher, you're not doing it for grades, you're not doing it to improve your resume, you're just doing it because you want to do it. And play is how children explore and learn what they like to do. It's how they develop their passions, their interests, and those who are lucky maybe go on and pursue careers at what they enjoy doing as children play. So the third characteristic of play is, seems a little counterintuitive to many people, and that's that it is always structured. We talk about unstructured play, but there's no such thing as unstructured play. It's always structured, and is structured by the child or the children themselves if there's a group playing together. So play is really, it's not random, it's freely chosen, but it's not random activity. Children entering into play are putting themselves into a defined activity that they have in mind, and they're structuring their behavior in accordance with a set of rules which may be implicit or may be explicit. So play, the structure of play and the creation of rules about play is how children learn to create and abide by socially agreed upon rules. And the fourth characteristic of play is that there's always an element of imagination. Some play is more imaginative than others, but all play involves some kind of stepping out of the real world. You're in this pretend world. It's a play castle you're making if you're building a castle. If you're little children playing, you know, goblins or witches or Wonder Woman or whatever it is, you're pretending to be somebody that you normally aren't, and you're following out that role. The most important material, if you will, for play for any kid is kids to play with. You know, some people might like to think that kids are naturally attracted to the great outdoors, but that's sort of a cultivated interest. Kids are naturally attracted to other kids. And the most important stimulant for play is other kids to play with. As long as there's something there, they'll find something. That you don't have to have elaborate toys, you just have to have space and opportunity. Everybody's concerned about learning, they're not concerned about happiness. So now I've learned to say that because children learn so much in play, they can't learn in any other way. Things that can't be taught, they learn in play. that automatically invites at least another question. Oh, what do they learn? And then I get to talk about the value of play. And then I can slip in, oh, and by the way, it also makes children happy, as an incidental side benefit.
So what are barriers for play right now, especially if you are a kindergarten teacher? Share with us some of your anxiousness of play and what does that mean in your world?
So we got time.
Yeah. When do we have time to play?
Yeah.
Well, social distancing, correct, right? With the pandemic, for those of you who are doing face-to-face, it's very structured, it's very guided, there's groups. Testing is huge. Accountability. Technology, TV, freedom. Isolation. Yeah, if they don't have siblings to play with. Letting go. It is hard to let go. Think about, I know even as kindergarten teachers, and it's sad because I feel like it's going into the preschools. It has been for years. I'm just in denial. But this, like when you create centers and you create, like we say, oh, that's the kids' playtime, but is it? I mean, how much is center time really play? Is it, as, Dr. Peter Gray said, is it kids really creating their play, or is it teacher directed? Is it child centered? Yeah, things that can't be taught are learned through play. Absolutely. And so many things that can be taught through play too. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's hard to promote when you think about the accountability with your KRAs and your testing and, getting these kids ready for the third grade guarantee. And they have to have this many sight words, and they have to have all of this stuff in literacy before the end of the year. And we used to have slows, but those type of things, like it's hard where do we take time to let kids just play? But thinking about, look what we could accomplish if we released some of that responsibility and gave it back to the kids and the skills that we could teach. All right, so we are at 10 after 11. I promised you guys a short break. So there's going to be a 10-minute break, and I promise I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hope you had your fresh cup of coffee, stretched your legs a little bit. All right, so as I said, so this is going to be the opportunity that we're really going to start digging into these virtual experiences, these virtual learning engagements, and how it's going to support those kindergartners, those preschoolers at home. So I'm going to start off with a couple to share, and then you guys are going to dig in and be able to start sharing, collaborating, and that on a couple of them on your own. So Not a Box. Some of you may be very familiar with this book. It's something that it's always my go-to. I'm always like, if anytime you want to be a great inquiry teacher, this is the one book to start with. So in Not a Box, I'm gonna just preview it because I'm a very good teacher and I'd like to share my books. for those of you who may not know about not a box. All right, so why are you sitting in a box? I don't know if you guys can see it real well. Yes, I probably would project it on an Elmo, but not today. It's not a box. What are you doing on top of that box? It's not a box. Why are you squirting a box? I said it's not a box. Now you're wearing a box. This is not a box. Are you still standing around in that box? It's not a box. Well, what is it then? So thinking about this piece of literature, thinking about what access equity students may have. I don't know about your house, and it's not because my husband works at UPS, but I have a lot of boxes because of virtual and because of the pandemic, I've been buying a lot of things on Amazon. But think about equity. Not every kid may have a box because their parents may not be buying things on Amazon. But do they have a cereal box? Do they have an old shoebox? Do they have, I mean, this is something that most families will be able to get their hands on, or students. So let's take that box. Let's say that, you know, you've kind of surveyed and have a general idea that kids have access to a box. But before you present something, again, always being mindful of that. So here's the provocation. We're going on a treasure hunt. Is your treasure box ready? So if you notice, there's provocations of it's going to be a treasure hunt and they need to get their treasure box ready. So what does that open up itself for? A lot of different things. There are approaches to learning and attributes of the learner profile that could be developed through this experience. Can you think about, between the approaches to learning and a learner profile, just having this provocation of, we need a treasure box because we're going on a treasure hunt. So for those of you who are saying, oh no, where's my poster? I don't know what they are. I forgot. Here you go. So in the chat room, what would you think, which skills, those approaches to learning, or which one of those learner profile could you envision developing, you know, promoting through this type of a provocation? Self-management, thinking, defined a box, being a risk taker, creative thinking. Open-minded. Just being open-minded enough to think about, okay, what about the kid who legitimately doesn't even have a cereal box? What can we do? Could it be a treasure bag, pillowcase? A lot of, and even thinking about the trying to think of the fine motor, gross motor skills used to be under one, two, three, four, five, self-management. I'm trying to think what it is. But even thinking about even some of those skills that we have that you're developing. Yeah. Then they dump the cereal out because they need the empty box. That my kids would have done that. Absolutely. They would have dumped it all. But my teacher said I needed that box. Problem solving. That is cute. All right. So next, here's a problematic scenario. You know, you want those kids to be engaged. You want them to be motivated. So here, you are a very important scientist, and you're going out to discover the changes that are being noticed outside. You're going to collect some data, and you're going to report back to the team on Friday. Okay, so think of how you provoke this problem. You excite them. You show up to class and you've got your magnifying glass or you've got your special hat on and you give them a responsibility. Then you talk about how do you collect data and how do you report out and, you know, all of those conversations. But think all of these, what skills, transdisciplinary skills, those skills that go across all the disciplines, just asking them to be a science, to go outside and discover change. Share with me, what skills do you think? And go ahead and chime in because I'm really tired of hearing my voice. What do you notice? That something like that, what skills would you be developing? TikTok. Anybody want to share out loud?
Love the sound of my voice, Cheryl.
Yeah, I love your sound too, Angela.
I think I like creativity. That's something that seems to be left off a lot, and just being able to have kids become creative and figuring out things as they say through play. That's not, you know, definitely regimented and saying this is what they have to learn, but just letting them explore. That whole creativity process is lost with typical education the way it is. It's do this because I said so, not, oh, look what I found, look what happened.
Right.
Signing off.
Take something, right, creativity, and look at it all, being a scientist and making that discovery, the math, the literacy, all those things that we have to teach, go do this. Now we're getting them excited. We're getting them, you know, engaged.
Cheryl, I was just thinking the social emotional aspect of, like, I'm a scientist, look at me, and like feeling proud of themselves and that inner, you know, being able to feel good about doing something fun and sharing with their friends and all that.
Right. Absolutely. We have to develop them as feeling like they are learners. They need to understand, you know what I mean? We need to empower them to see themselves other than, you know what I mean, that imagination, that creativity. We're
I
instilling.
also think maybe like the key components, like the connection, the transdisciplinary that you're kind of showing up there is huge.
Yes. One activity hits so many different disciplines. Like you're going outside and doing that, you know, what you're like physical education, you know what I mean? And the social emotional pieces and those type of things. And you're making a great connection, Jenny. It's like, I almost like look at those concepts. If you think about the concepts of form, function, change, connection, causation, responsibility, perspective, those key concepts are what connects your disciplines. The form of what you're seeing outside and how form may be mathematical forms of something. Things are tall, things are short, you know, how, you know, you can just, the description of things, the vocabulary based on form. the art, the visual arts of form of things, the form of things when you're in PE, and how does that apply to change and things that are changing outside, like being a tree and how it's changing and things are falling off of it. You know, perspective, you know, the perspective of change and how, you know, sometimes it makes you sad, the emotional piece, because the trees are losing their leaves and then all of a sudden they were beautiful and now they're really ugly, you know, and the perspective of how some of the animals feel because it's getting colder, and, you know, or our perspective because, you know, we can't go outside and play without wearing a coat again. So like these type of things, you use these key concepts to make those connections across the disciplines, because it's not, even in kindergarten, I'm not teaching reading, I'm not teaching math, I'm not teaching science. It's that connection, and those key concepts are what makes those connections across the disciplines. You use those in your units to connect everybody together. This is like the big, the puzzle pieces are those key concepts that helps develop the connections. When you talk about conceptual teaching, this is it. It's not like a bazillion concepts that you don't like. What is a concept? Not a concept. Here you go. These are the concepts right here that it's the foundation to help make those connections for all of our PYP kids. Think about this, pictures. You know, you think about making thinking visible. I love those strategies. If you're not using them, you should be using them. You need to dig into making thinking visible. There's such amazing resources. There's more in the toolbox at the end. But think about this visual, thinking about change. You know, what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder about this visual that you can either in a small group, in a little breakout room, you work with kids to get them building their vocabulary, and what do they notice about colors, shapes, size, change, form. You know, you create it. What do you see? What does this make you think about? What do you wonder? You know, good, bad, healthy, gross. I don't know about you, but in my neighborhood, they're getting huge. Like that rain we have some giant mushrooms growing on. So this is a great provocation to thinking, to developing those skills using visuals. Just, you know, showing a picture and provoking that conversation with your kids. It might be harder in a bigger group. This might be something that would be great to do in a small group. Maybe you have it set up so that if you have a para or an aide, or, you know, when you do a group and they do a group, and however you do that, a little breakout room, or, you know, if you have small group time in the afternoon, use these strategies as provocations or learning experiences to help, you know, support your units of inquiry. All right, now we're going to be risk takers. All right, Michelle, you got to help me out here. So what we're going to do is you're going to randomly go into a breakout room of 3 to 4 people. What I want you to do is I want you to think about a piece of literature. I have a few examples. If you can't think of one on your own and consensus in your group, you are welcome to use one of these. So if you have your phone with you, and if you want to take a picture of this slide so that you have an idea of what you're going to do. Now I'm saying 10 to 12 minutes, but I'm going to tell you it's probably going to be closer to 8. So this is what you're going to do in your breakout room. You're going to take a book, could be The Grouchy Ladybug, could be Rainbow Fish. I tried to pick things that you might know. Who Sank the Boat is another one. The Itsy Bitsy Spider. So these are and like you may have another book that your group agrees on. Think about a story familiar that you're all aware of. Think of a play experience you could create. Name the unit. Is that going to be sharing the planet? Is that going to be how the world works? What elements are you going to be talking about? Are you going to be working on caring? Are you going to be working on causation? Are you going to be working on social skills? Okay. And then what disciplines are you talking about? Is it going to be something that might be science? Is it going to be something that might be literature with rhyming and those type of things? So we're going to try this out. I've done this before. I'm going to be a risk taker. So Michelle's going to put you in a breakout room for about 8 minutes. And I want you to, in your breakout rooms, talk about a piece of literature and just brainstorm some ideas. It can be messy, guys. It's okay. It's the process. Remember, it's the process to reshape your thinking. It doesn't have to be a perfect product. Okay? Any questions? If you're not familiar with breakout rooms, she will put you in there and there'll be a timer and it'll pull you back to the whole group on its own. So you literally just have to sit there and it'll happen all for you. It's like the queen behind the curtain.
Mhm. All right, are we ready to go?
Yep, I'd say go ahead.
Okay. Cheryl, it might move you. Whoops.
Some questions, and I'm always open to making sure we leave that door open for communication with one another, to share our resources, share our materials, support one another. So think about that, like how can we help each other through this beyond today? What's the best way to communicate these resources and tools and ideas together beyond today? Because today, the learning never stops today. So think about, I want you guys thinking about that. Again, it is a process. All right, so I want to get into these tools. These are not all mine. I'm not even going to pretend to tell you that they are or make it up, because they're not. That's the great thing about the internet. We currently this year took on Toddle. Some other districts are using Toddle now. Some of this stuff came from webinars and ideas, and I've done my best to make sure I give credit to whoever deserves the credit. I was just the collector and putting them in my box. So again, if any of these things resonate with you, we need to think about a shared way, a way to share these resources and help you. So the first one is, this is a checklist. It could be in the format of a bookmark. It could be format in a placemat, a poster. It could be cutened up a little bit, but it helps parents understand kids' play and how to ask them questions. And it's based on the left side about looking at those skills, you know, the research skills, communication. But sometimes parents might need help when their kids are playing, asking with questions. This may be incredibly intimidating for some parents, and you may not want to send it home. You may only want to send a part of it. Know your parents through relationships to know what is it that, you know, how can I support their play at home? How can I support what I can't see? But so that parents can let me know what they're doing. Here's
Yeah,
another.
Share your screen, Cheryl.
Oh, am I not? Sorry, guys. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah.
That was another thing that got knocked off, huh? When
Yeah, sorry. I thought you were just
yeah, I'm just talking to talk. All right, hold on one second. Let me get my share sound, share screen. Thank you, Jenny. All right, let me go back a minute real quick. You guys are just gonna let me finish the rest of the day, weren't you? All right, open up my screen. Go back. This was the chart I was talking about. So this is the different things, a list of questions that you could ask your parents. This is another chart that allows for feedback at the bottom. So self-management skills. My child is able to reflect on their learning. My child is listening to others. My child is kind to their, instead of classmates, it might have their siblings. My child is curious, you know, and then parents can reflect at the bottom and give you feedback, you know, compliments that they're being given, challenges they're having, their feelings. It's just a recording device to help. What do you see and what are you hearing? All right, then there is, oops, wrong way. Let me go back here. Goodness gracious. You can tell when I get in a hurry. All right, so these are, so this is based on the work of Edward de Bono. It's the colored hat thinking. It's modified and adapted. Basically, this is like a reflection or kind of like a self-assessment of through an activity, like let's say the box, you know, doing the treasure box. What learner profile, what compliments were you giving, the parents' thoughts and wondering, the feelings, some challenges. What is the child thinking and wondering about? It's just that communication tool that you could capture learning, document it, monitor it. Another one of those making thinking visible strategies, whether you use Seesaw or you use other devices to capture kids, if it's a recording, because, you know, our kids aren't writing. Well, generally speaking, they're not writing, but they could, before you talked about change, before you talked about going outside or doing a treasure hunt, you could say, get their thinking about what they think now, the pre-assessment. What do you think now? Then when in a couple of weeks, come back and say, now what do you think? You know, now what are you noticing? Or now how has your thinking changed since we started talking about this before? Because, you know, time in kids is not, they don't always have that concept of time. So you've got to capture it in the moment and document it. And it can be through auditory, you know, record it, you know, or let them tell you and you type it in, or let the parents type it in, but document their thinking. Always plan for action. Always plan for action. Do not plan action, plan for it so that it's happening. All right. This is the end all be all. I don't know if you've seen the new kid superintendent, but this is my last message to you that I want to leave you with. I will follow up with an email to each and every one of you just to see if you have any further questions. Or if, like I said, a way to continue this conversation. If there's anything, you'll get the recording. If there's anything in there that you want, maybe a shared file would be fine. Again, I think we're here to support each other. So here is this. I appreciate you guys coming today. I think this is a little light humor to help us out.
Hi, welcome to the new school year. You know, we're living in unprecedented times these days, but one thing's for certain.
Excuse me, Dr. Lewis. It's working really hard. Why do you let me do it?
You know what? Thank you, Silas. I appreciate that. Why don't you take it away?
Hello? It's not even on. This has a thing easy because I make it overwhelmed. I love you, Mom. Now it's time to go back to school. I'm set for first grade. I know what the place called. Where to our friends. Let's do this. We're all in it together. All still one team. Let's do this! Woo! Sometimes you need a little help. That's your best. That's all matters. Kids don't need perfection. We just know no mistakes. I know. I'm a kid. We support each other. There's nothing we can't do. When we work together, we're unstoppable. This thing can't keep us apart. Teachers, we need you. That's loud.
Let's do this.
I'm tired of talking.
All right. So thank you guys so much. Look at there, 12 o'clock. I couldn't have done that better if I, does anybody have any questions or anything that I can answer or not answer? I can go find the answer.
Are those charts that you showed in the presentation available to be shared? The lists and things?
The toolbox? Yes, I think as long as I give credit for who designed them and created them, and I'm not taking credit myself, because they, like I said, they're public. I just want to make sure that I properly give a credit for who they belong to. All right, well, you guys enjoy your Saturday. Thank you so much for coming, and good luck.
Thanks. Cheryl, did you want to share the PowerPoint? And maybe that's what she meant. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I could probably end up sharing the PowerPoint. Like I said, I have the email list.
Well, I'm getting ready to send, it's like some of the things you shared, the Inquiry by Fire, and then the De Bono group. I've linked it off the internet. So I'm going to send out that with the recording as soon as I get it downloaded.